Hi, everyone. My name is Jovana Florus. I am an engineering manager. I've been in the field I've been an engineering manager for around 5 years, and I've been in quality for around 15 years. So I am here to talk to you about testing, specifically about how to gain following and excitement around your test plans and strategies, whether they're test documents that you're sending out or like full-blown test plans. I think this is pretty relevant for regardless of level or who your audience really is. So whether your audience is your fellow quality colleagues or your audience is engineers or leadership, whatever it is, I think this like really applies. They're basic like marketing principles, so you can use this to, I guess, manipulate friends and family too. That's what you want to do. Not manipulate, coerce. So I use the word audience intentionally because sometimes the audience is your colleague. The audience could also be yourself. Like if you're not too sure about what you're doing and why you're doing it, this also applies there. The audience could be your manager or whoever else. So the first step is really to like identify who your target audience is. So who are they? What do they want? What motivates and drives your audience? Is your audience driven by feeling, or is your audience driven by numbers, bottom line? And understanding that is what's going to help you really understand what will speak to them as a problem and where your needs and desires and theirs kind of align so that you can focus on those intersections and help. And that makes it easier to like create a case and have a conversation around something and come to common agreements there. So having a clear idea of who your audience is also helps you to streamline all your conversations that you're having both with yourself and others and have a consistent message across the board. I'm going to be anecdotal. So I went to an after work tech meetup once, basically a happy hour at a company, and I was invited by another quality professional, so I thought that this was going to be like we're going to get together and like grunt and grumble about our weeks and everything that's happened and last minute deploys and all this stuff. And when I walked into the room, what it really was the engineers at that company had gathered for a social gathering, and there were a couple of people sprinkled in that weren't employees, but mostly employees. So I walked over to one of the groups of developers that are focused on like feature development and had a conversation with them and made like the biggest mistake. So instead of kind of speaking to them on what they cared about, I just talked about testing for 5 minutes, and I did not gain any friends in that conversation. What I did gain was a lot of feedback on how they felt about testing. So I didn't know much about the company coming into the conversation, and it turns out that they did not have any quality assurance or any quality practices either. As the VP later told me, the developers are the testers, and so there was no need to have it. And so that's really the feedback that I got and the sentiment that I was getting from this group as I was talking to them. So basically they told me we don't need testing, or we hate it. We put things in our test environment, and then when it gets stale, we just deploy because we figure it's been long enough, or what's the worst that could happen, our customers will let us know and we'll fix it then. Like those were real answers that were happening. And so in that case, I really did not read the room, right? So I didn't pay attention to who I was talking to. I didn't get anything like very useful. I probably created more of a hate and dislike of quality assurance and those practices than creating like friends that wanted to learn more from me, because I just came in strong and only talked about my part, and I didn't even kind of help them understand what I do. So they probably were like, she has a useless job. At the end of that, I felt pretty beat down, and so I was pretty ready to leave. And on my way out, I bumped into the VP, and so the VP stopped me. We're going to give the VP a name, Claire. Claire stops me on my way out, and it's like, oh, what did you think of my team? Not understanding, again, who this person was. I was like, oh, the organization's nice, the place is nice, not understanding that they were actually taking ownership of the team. And after a couple minutes of this conversation, I did understand that, but I had already said some things that I probably shouldn't have said. So they were like, oh, what do you do? I said, I'm in quality assurance. And they responded with, oh, we don't need that here because our devs are so passionate about testing. And I responded with, well, not those 5 over there. So boldly, Claire called over the 5 and was like, did you say this? Tell Jovana how passionate they are. And they're like, no, we really just need some testers. If you want us to do testing, we need to hire testers. And that conversation led to an interview, led to a job that I'm still in. So what worked for me that second time around is that I recognized the boldness of the person that was talking to me, but I responded just as boldly. Not in character for me generally, but because I had been beat down by the 5 minutes of conversation already, I was just like over it and done. And so yeah, in that moment, I knew that this person was driven by the emotions of their team. And so they wanted their team happy. And so they were so proud. Oh, my team is passionate about testing and they love it. And I immediately went for that. I was like, no, they're not. Here's why. I know why. And it grabbed them into the conversation, and they were engaged and they wanted to have the conversation with me and figure out why. And I immediately had all of their attention. So when you're building your persona, you want to find that thing that's going to make the people or the target audience that you're talking to pay attention to you, regardless of whether they agree or not, paying attention. So you really want to know what sets the scene for them to grab their attention so that they will continue to listen for the next 5 minutes or read the rest of your document or whatever it is. The next thing is understanding the problem. So I might think that the problem is we deploy too quickly, and my engineers think the problem is me. So we have to find something common that we can settle on, and a common villain. Every story has a villain, right? So we both need to be fighting the same thing in order for it to be a partnership that works and a partnership that has success for everyone involved, and less of something where I'm being forced to do something or they're being forced to do something that they don't want to do. So instead of saying, hey, we're deploying too quickly, I can maybe focus on, oh, I've seen us have this bug 3 times in the last 2 months. And every time we have this bug, it's so annoying. The whole team is annoyed. So why don't we put our heads together and figuring out how to stop this bug from going out again? Now I've got them on my side. They're like, oh, Jovana wants to do something for me. She doesn't want me to have to deal with that fix again. Who likes to be on call and get a call in the middle of the night because X system went down? And I'm happy because they're focusing on the quality of our product. Sometimes what you end up vilifying may not be your top priority, but it's good to just start to gather allies and followers and people that want to help you, and then slowly inch up and give them projects and tasks and focuses and initiatives that are more in line with what you want to do. Good. Any questions? No. Okay. So when you're looking for the problem, you want to break it down. So what are the top concerns of your audience? How do those concerns align with your top concerns? Like I said, we want to find the intersection of the two. And then does your plan address the audience's top concerns? So I can have a full-fledged test strategy for an organization, and it may not address anything that they want. This is a good way to have those around you, your colleagues, the engineering team, kind of start to wonder, what is it that you're doing, because they don't see the benefit or impact because they're not looking in places that you're making the impact. So this is where it's important to find a solution that's really specific to the group that you're working with and the project that you're working on. I will give an example again. I spent a year doing a lot of Selenium work, and I was so excited about it. So when I joined this new team, I talked a lot about it, and the developers were like, oh, we've never seen that. This is like this unicorn that we've heard about, an automation, front-end automation, but how does it work, and could it really happen? Again, this is a team that never had any quality assurance specific employees or engineers working with them. So truly, it was like something that maybe they had seen at a conference or something and never seen in person, and assumed that it could never work for their company. We moved too fast, all those things. So I immediately hooked onto that, and I spent probably 6 months, like building out a framework and adding automation and making sure it ran quickly and it ran easily and they didn't have to do anything for it because I'm only one person. I don't want you to come to me for everything, and fixing all these problems. And then to realize they just really wanted to see that it was possible, but they didn't care about it being possible in their systems and in their code. So it was nice, but it was not truly respected. And I would have been more appreciated if I had worked on like back-end validation and data validation and those issues that were more painful for them. Actually, they also didn't see like front-end issues as the biggest pain point. They saw it as the things that customers would catch immediately anyway. So why spend our time there? And so that was a learning for me, because I was taking something that I had done before and had worked before, and since they seemed interested but not appreciative, like they didn't give me any indication that this is what they needed, but they seemed so interested, I put so much time into it, and I basically put on them a solution that had worked somewhere else, and I received no reward for it. So I worked for nothing, essentially, and I had to have this moment where I knew, like, I need to throw that away. I just need to let it go. It's not worth the time, and it's time wasted. And I also need to own up to that too. So now I need to have a conversation like, okay, we went in the wrong direction. How do we go in the right direction? Again, back to knowing your audience, understanding a problem, having a common problem, like this common enemy that we can fight together, rather than me fighting an enemy and then proving or trying to convince them that that was an enemy, because that didn't work. It was never an enemy to them, and it's not an enemy now, even though it's fixed. Like, it doesn't matter.
Wait, so looking back on it, would you have like done it differently? Like, how would you do it differently? Would you just like try to see what their biggest priority is before attempting?
Absolutely. So at that point, I was a team of one, an engineer, a manager of process, and nothing else. But when I added people to my team, I stopped them from making that mistake immediately. I challenged them to talk to the developers and hear from the developers what they thought were the issues, but then also to look at logs of bugs and incident reports that had happened in the last 6 months, and like the time and the cost associated with those things, and then go back to the developers before even making a full like plan to say, hey, what about this? And seeing if they had like a couple of friends in the room before, like have like allies, basically creating allies in the room before you have any type of a review, and that worked much better. So I probably would have spent my time, like I said, doing data validation. That was a big thing for us. Resources, like adding monitoring, just maybe addressing even more of the development practices that impact quality, rather than focusing on testing the output from the developers. Any other questions? All right. So the last part is the communication. I can have a great plan. I can know that this plan addresses a problem, but if I don't communicate it in the right way, I'm probably not, again, I'm not going to gain anyone's attention for them to even hear that I'm addressing the problem. So I'm going to do a little exercise. I'm going to tell you a story. Three Little Pigs is one of my favorite stories. And so I could tell you, Three Little Pigs is about 3 pigs. They built 3 houses in 3 different materials. The wolf blew away 2 of them, and the one that stayed was the brick one, so everyone built a brick house after that, the end. It covers the details, and it got it done. I did tell you the story, but it's not exciting. It's much different than saying, once upon a time, there was a mother, and she had 3 little pigs, and they were all grown up. And so she said, pigs, it's time to go out into the world. And the first little pig met a man, and he was carrying straw, and he asked him for straw and built a straw house. The second little pig met a man that was carrying sticks. He asked him for sticks and built a house of sticks. And the last little pig met a man that was carrying bricks, and he asked him for bricks to build his brick house. One day, the big bad wolf came to the straw house, and he said, little pig, come out. And the little pig said, no, I'm not coming out. He said, then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. And he did. And the little pig ran over to his brother's house. And his brother and him sat there and waited for the wolf. And the brother thought, my house is strong enough, it sticks. And so on and so on. And we know how the story ends. You're listening, you're looking at me, I'm giving like tonal changes. And if I'm doing like a story time for children, obviously that's the way I need to do it because my audience there will run off and color the walls unless I wrangle them in with what I'm providing with my voice and all of that. So it's the same thing when you're talking to any group. We don't need to talk to them like that because that would not work. So you need to be specific to your audience. And so when you're telling the story, I mean, what you want to do is you want to set the scene. So if what you're presenting is like a plan to address a bug that's been in production, let's say for 6 months, then you're saying, okay, well, this bug has been there for this amount of time, and the impact that it's having is blah, blah, blah. And so if I'm talking to management, I'm probably going to talk dollars. Like the impact is 10% of our customers don't complete the payment transaction because they're unable to complete it on this type of phone in this type of way. That equals X amount of dollars over the last 6 months that we've lost. We have these things that we can say. Now everyone's listening. They know what dollars mean. If I say $10,000 a day, they're like, oh, that's significant. I mean, we could hire new people for $10,000 a day, or we could get rid of people to make up the difference, or we could fix the bug. And so now I've set the scene and I've convinced them that there is a problem. So I know the audience, and so now I've shown them a problem and I've gotten them to agree to my problem because I'm speaking to them in what they care about. Then I can follow it up with everything else, right? So I've identified the common issue and I'm like, oh, but the way to get this done is do this. It'll take this amount of time. So now I'm saving the day, and then we can all celebrate at the end. So pre-celebration, and as I'm communicating to them that it's going to happen, it's going to be amazing, it's going to work so well. This is something that you can do. I mean, I do a lot of my conversations like verbally, so face to face, but even if you're creating a document and having, like, most documents have like a little summary at the top. So setting the scene in that area will probably get you more readers to like read straight through your document, and they'll believe that you're addressing an issue. So if I write a test plan that has performance and security and everything else in it, but really all my team cares about is UI issues, then maybe I'm going to focus on UI issues in that summary to get them to be convinced that I'm addressing what they care about, but I'm still going to include everything in the rest of the document. All right, so just recapping, you want to focus on your audience. So you really want to know who your audience is and ask yourself those questions that help you identify the audience and build this character that you're going to play up to. And then you want to understand the problem and make sure that there is a problem. So understand what someone else would consider a problem and make sure that you're aligned with them. And then the final thing that you want to do is communicate it. So we just like saw the power of storytelling. Random fact. So it's rumored that Three Little Pigs helped a lot of people during the Great Depression because it was like this story of hope. So if this fairy tale can help to like grown people through depression, I'm sure that we can use storytelling to help to gather followers and allies for testing initiatives. Thank you.